What's up, everyone? How we doing tonight? I want to thank everyone for coming. I am Aaron Franco. I'm the general manager of WSOE 89.3, the only alternative, Elon's campus radio. We're really honored to be helping with this event here today. Quick intro for those who don't know about the Hometown Holler. They're a true born and raised North Carolina podcast, hosting healthy conversation and debate around Alamance County and national politics. No matter where you're at politically, they want you to be a part of the conversation, whether you're from North Carolina or not. Reminder, once again, this is a nonpartisan event, not associated with any political party. No matter where you're at politically, if you have no opinion at all, if you're here for the coffee and cookies, I totally understand. We want you to be a part of this conversation. We want to talk to you. We want you to be involved, and we thank you for being here. And before we begin, I have to give quick shout-outs to Abby Igo and Naima Clark. This event would not be happening without them. They set everything up, so thank you. Thank you to Event Services for doing the live recording, the mic setups you see here, the tables. And thank you to Razu for giving us this space to host this forum tonight. Now, without further ado, proud to introduce Hometown Holler, live and Hollerin'.
North Carolina State Highway Patrol. What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
Well, hey, man.
We are, for the next 50 minutes, the Beanox. Big names on campus for all the freshmen here at Elon University. This beautiful, suave, academic audience.
We're live and hollering.
We are.
The first time we've had a live audience in front of us doing one of these things.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen eventually. I will be honest, I didn't think it was going to happen on a college campus.
Agreed.
It's been a minute.
When was the last time you've been on a college campus?
May 4th, Star Wars Day of 2017. May the 4th be with you. I graduated with a 1.7.
Is that a GPA?
BAC.
Oh, blood alcohol content.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. But this is awesome. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful.
Thanks for y'all to coming out, and we really appreciate it. This is pretty cool. But Daniel, I'm sure you have heard, but did you know that there was an election happening this year? I mean, it's only a few weeks away.
In this country?
In this country.
Okay.
But of course you have heard this, because it's kind of hard not to hear about this. There has been thousands upon thousands of TV ads, articles, social media posts just regarding this national election. And rightfully so, right? This election is a huge deal. It seems like it's not just the policies, but it's the actual entire direction of the government, or really us as a society, that is on the line this year. The choice is so vast and so important, but it can feel so dispiriting, right? You know, just to follow the national election because, you know, it's hard to feel like you have an impact. I mean, you could donate 10 to 20 bucks to your presidential candidate, but isn't that just ass-wiping money for them? I mean,
we're 5 minutes in and you just said ass-wiping.
I know. But you may be thinking, what difference is your little vote going to make? Because my state's going to go Trump, or my state's going to go Harris. But anyway, there's no need to vote, right? Because it doesn't matter. It's tough. I get it. But, well, first of all, I do want to caution against that type of cynicism. It is absolutely vital to participate in this election. And please do. God help you get out there and vote. But do whatever you can. I mean, shit, be a poll worker.
Yeah, I think you raised a lot of good points. You know, today we're obviously here to bring a different message. We're not here to doom scroll and just bring cynicism layered on cynicism. We're here to ask a question. What if we told you that there's an election happening right now that's arguably just as important as the national election, but in this election, your vote carries a lot more power? That's the question we're here to ask you. And the kicker is this election, it happens every year.
Every year.
And it doesn't really get the attention it deserves. I am, of course, talking about local elections. Local elections are held in every state county and city across America where you work, live, or in this case, study. Hopefully you're studying here at Elon. And they do happen every year. This year, November 5th, you're going to go into that voting booth, hopefully, and you will vote, hopefully, for the entire ballot, right? From the town all the way up to the national offices. And these lower ballot races significantly impact major issues in your community and beyond. I'll give you an example. Let's talk about climate change. Say again?
Spill it on us.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll spill it. I'll spill it right here. Climate change, that's a big issue. That is an international issue. But locally, public transportation, that's a local level concern. If you care about reducing carbon emissions, supporting public transportation is key. Or let's talk about police reform. That's another hot button issue for lots of folks. City councils and mayors, whom you elect locally. Those folks have more influence over your local police department than the president.
Or what about this? What about mass incarceration? One of the great national sins of America. One of the biggest problems that we are facing, in my opinion. One of the biggest drivers of mass incarcerations are the decisions of your local district attorney. Your local district attorney gets to decide who to charge and how much to charge them for. They get to decide plea bargains. So the rise of this incarceration that we have seen over the last couple decades, that's really driven largely by people's votes and picking their local district attorney. And I bet many people out here didn't realize that you actually get a vote for your DA.
Yeah, and I want to take a moment to be clear here. You know, we're certainly not here to place blame or make anyone feel guilty. There's plenty of other places where I can, you know, if I wanted to do that, I would have just stayed home.
Sure.
Part of the reason for this disparity in voter turnout and awareness of these elections is that local elections, like I said, they don't receive a lot of media coverage, and that makes it difficult for us to learn about the candidates who are running for these local offices and their positions. So, I mean, I think, you know, we certainly aren't here to doom and gloom, but to raise awareness.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'm sure you're sitting there going, I don't even know who my city council person is or my district attorney.
I do.
Well, that might be because for everybody else, it's just never been put in front of their damn face.
Yeah, I think the problem, you know, as politics has become, I'll say, more nationalized.
Sure.
You know, local media has retreated, right? Media is a business, and in economics there are boom and bust cycles, and right now we are going through a period of what I will call creative destruction with local media. That's your euphemism for the night. And as a result, as local media has in many places, you know, these local newspapers have cut staff, have shrunk. The result is that it's difficult for us to learn about these local races and the candidates who are running in them and the offices that they're seeking to hold.
You know, well, let me tell you something, Daniel. The fact that most people don't know who their local politicians are doesn't stop them from having a massive influence over your life.
Doesn't stop the politicians.
The politicians,
yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Can I speak frank?
You want to be frank?
Yeah, call me frank.
You can be frank. Yeah. Does this? Because usually when Quinn Ray says I'm going to be frank, that usually means I'm about to broaden my vocabulary. So is that what you mean by letting you be frank?
Well, no, it's just a little bit of a passion. So I sit on the local city council here for the town of Elon. So I witnessed some of this firsthand.
So this is a local elected official, by the way.
I bet many people didn't know that either. Huh?
Yeah.
Right here in the town.
Applause. You'll get a lot of emails later complaining about the town transit system.
Flood the inbox for sure. But when you aren't involved in your local politics, it makes it easier, let's say, for a company or a developer that wants a shitty tax break or to build a shitty building or just do something shitty in your town without being held accountable. The less you know about your local politicians and your local elections, the more power you give that local asshole who just wants to fuck shit up without you even noticing. So how do we fix this?
That was actually tamer than what I was expecting. That may surprise you guys.
Glad.
I was expecting worse.
That.
So I think let's turn this challenge, folks. Let's turn it into an opportunity. The good news is, right, as I mentioned, your vote, your efforts, your campaign contribution, what we'll call your time and treasure, That goes further on a local level, and I'll give you some numbers for
I like numbers.
the statisticians in the audience. So let's consider a $10 campaign donation. We're all getting those texts. You guys get the text for like $5 here, $10 there. Your
Ass
firstborn
wiping
child. Your ass wiping money, as Quinn so eloquently put it. You know, a $10 or $100 contribution to a state superintendent race, let's say, or a local county commissioner race. I can tell you from personal experience, talking to candidates, that can be a game-changing amount of money.
Indeed.
It really can. It can significantly influence an election. Similarly, if you dedicate a day or just an afternoon to making phone calls, writing postcards, canvassing for a local candidate, you will have a substantial, possibly decisive effect on that election. Because with fewer votes in play, obviously, each vote counts more.
Well, I mean, if you go knock on 100 doors, right? Like that is a significant amount, especially in these local elections, of the electorate, right? It's just 100 doors, 3 hours, and you're meeting people.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you know what the margin of victory is for an Elon City Council race, Councilman Quinn Ray?
Well,
It's in the hundreds of votes, right?
so the first time I ran and I got elected in 2019, and during my race, there are 3 people you get to elect, and I was the top vote getter just by 4 votes.
To brag.
But indeed it was. Stroke the ego a little
That's
bit.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but you know, to make it more understandable for something maybe a little larger, right? We can take Alamance County's House Representative Ricky Hurtado, or former representative.
Sure.
He was in House District 63, and he lost by about 400 votes. And so this is where your vote really matters, because we all have, in at least in this room, could probably talk to 20 people that may not have voted in the local election. Had Ricky not have lost his race by 400 votes, because all the other races other than the presidential race, which has an electoral college, is done by the popular vote. So Ricky would have stayed in office, which would have kept Governor Cooper's veto power, which could have prevented, you know, the abortion bans that we started getting here in North Carolina.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously, if you haven't picked up on it, we're here to talk about local politics, how you can start at the local level and make big changes, have a ripple effect that ripples to the state, national, and potentially the international level. And we're really lucky
Yes,
to
we
have
are.
a very special guest brought to you at great expense from the vice president's rallies today in Charlotte and Greensboro. We're here to talk with Anderson Clayton. Anderson, just come on up. Let's just go ahead and do this.
Yeah, Anderson. For y'all that don't know who Anderson Clayton is, she is the North Carolina Democratic Party chair. She is the youngest party chair in the nation. You may have seen her on CNN or MSNBC or all these big syndicated networks, but right now she's in Elon University sitting with us, having a conversation.
Howdy, y'all.
Anderson, welcome to the Hometown Holler, live and Hollerin. I would say we've hollered a little bit.
We can start screaming.
Yeah, we'll start screaming. We didn't, because Anderson literally just got here from a big day. Kamala Harris is in North Carolina today, hosting 2 rallies. So we didn't get a chance to do our customary sound check. Anderson is a pro at this. So she does a lot of media appearances, knows how mics work and all that. But just because we're in a live audience, if at any point you can't hear me or you can't hear Anderson or Quinn, please let us know so we can adjust that.
I guess.
Anderson, could you tell us a little bit? Obviously, you've had a big day. And let's wind the clock back to before you were going to the vice president's rallies in an official capacity. Once upon a time, you were just a kid looking to make a difference. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, average college student, I would say. Just like one of y'all sitting in this room right now, except for I was on Appalachian State's campus, which I do believe is a little bit better than Elon's. Just my personal opinion. But I'll be honest, Crossroads is a great coffee shop. I love the people back there, though. Thank you for making my delicious drink right here. I appreciate you.
Man, that's some balls.
That's Anderson Clayton for you.
That's right. So you grew up here in North Carolina, grew up in Person County, went to Appalachian State, started getting involved in the college Dems there, right? So what motivated you? Can you tell us this journey that motivated you to get involved at your campus, because it's not where you voted or where you grew up, and then how did that lead from being a college Dem to being the North Carolina Democratic Party chair?
Yeah, so Roxborough is where I'm from, so it's a tiny town. If you take Raleigh and you go about an hour north of it, I tell people you're going to hit me before you hit Virginia. And I spent my entire life pretty much running from rural North Carolina because a lot of the people that when I grew up there were around me would say, if you've got big ideas, or if you've got big dreams, you've got to leave here in order to make something of yourself. And it wasn't necessarily revolved around politics, right? It was revolved around the type of opportunities that are afforded to young people across our state right now in rural communities or in communities, or even just in North Carolina in general. Some people might look at you and say, I got to get out of the state to be able to do something that I want to do with my life. And I really took that to heart. And so I went to Appalachian State. And honestly, the first time that I ever really got political was on a college campus because in 2016, we had a Republican governor, Pat McCrory. First time we had a Republican governor, the last 7 out of 8 governor's races Democrats have won in this state. And we plan to do so again this year. But I think it is pretty important for folks to understand that in 2016, we had a Republican governor. And one of his number one priorities that year was to strip voting sites across college campuses in North Carolina. And I make a joke with folks sometimes, especially when I'm talking to Republicans, to be real with y'all as a Democratic Party chair. I go, that old trope that y'all have got about college makes folks liberal. I'm like, it was true, but it was Republicans in college that made me a liberal, to be real with y'all. And how that happened was the fact that you had a Republican governor that was trying to take away a college voting site on Appalachian State's campus that year. And it was the Democratic Party, that Watauga County Democrats, that were out on campus, they were registering students to vote, and they cared about my right to vote. And I don't think going into college, I would have looked at you and said, I know I'm a Democrat because of blank. But I knew when I found that organization on a campus that was asking me, do you know what your rights are this year? Do you know that they're being threatened this year? That I wanted to be part of something that helped educate other people about what they may lose if they're not getting out to vote in this election cycle.
And no matter what party you are, right? Like
Exactly.
Voting is essential. It's your right.
It's about voting in general.
And Elon has a voting site, an early voting site. Did y'all know that? That Elon in
Like right down the-
2022,
right.
right down the way.
Indeed, you do. And it was really important. And the Watauga County Dems actually ended up suing the State Board of Elections to keep that voting site on campus that year. And I got to be part of a lawsuit that had 17 to 70-year-olds. It was a multicultural, multiracial, multi-generational coalition of people that came together and were fighting for something. And that's what really got me involved with politics. I joke with folks I wanted to become Anderson Cooper before I was Anderson Clayton and go into journalism. And that is what really turned the curve for me. And it was the bug that bit me. So, yeah.
That's like so quintessentially American, like getting started in politics by launching a lawsuit. So that's like such an American thing. And one thing you said that actually really resonated with me was this idea of like being told like to make a difference, to do whether it's in politics or business or to do whatever it is that you think you want to do. Let's say to find your fortune, you got to like leave.
Yeah.
You got to go to the Emerald City. We'll call it New York, or far off exotic places like Durham and Cary. Locals will get that. But that resonates with me because when I was in college, I felt that way. I felt like the only way that I can do anything, I can amount to anything, is to move to DC, is to work for that big organization in that big city. But that's not what I ended up doing. I ended up coming home, and I'm really, in hindsight, happy that I did that. I'm happy that we're here in my home county having this conversation in my home county, and you ultimately kind of made your way back home.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Tell us about kind of the I guess the post college. You graduate, right?
I do.
You ultimately decide that you'll just let Anderson Cooper be Anderson Cooper.
Yeah.
And what happens next?
Well, really, I got involved with national campaigns. And I think as somebody that was from a rural part of the state, I did not know that was something that you could do. And so regardless of what party you're affiliated with, you should know that in any part of the state that you're from, you can go and work on campaigns like that. But you didn't really have active campaigning that happened in the communities where I grew up. And so I figured out that was a job through an internship in college. And I was able to go work on national campaigns afterwards. I worked for the vice president's campaign when she was running for president the first time. And Iowa is really, I was working as an Iowa caucus organizer and bounced from Kentucky to Tennessee and sort of came back home after that because I realized that national organizing and national campaigns, you need people that are going to actually enable change in their own backyard, and that oftentimes comes from people that represent those communities from them, and then from them, right? Like right now, the number one statistic that people will give you is that folks are not getting their information from the news or from a television screen or from a phone screen.
That's right.
They're actually getting it from the people around them the most.
And podcasts.
And podcasts. and I think it's important because it's so important to talk to the people around you the most. And I realized that local organizing is what matters, getting back to the grassroots. And so I came back home in 2021 and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was sort of like, I want to locally organize, and how I've known to do that in the past, how I grew up is in this party is through the county party. And so I went looking for where my local county party was. And to be honest with y'all, it was a little bit absent in Roxborough at that point in time.
You don't say.
And there was about 8 Democrats on a county convention call in March of 2021. And the guy that was the county party chair there looked at me and he said, or looked at that whole group of us and he goes, "I'm done. I ain't doing this no more. Somebody else want to take this on." And Tammy, who was sitting on there, she said, "I did it last term. I ain't doing it this time. Like, somebody else has got to wear this title for us." And I was the only young person on the call, and I raised my hand and I was like, I volunteer as tribute. I would love to do this if given the opportunity to. I just wanted to come back and get involved. I didn't necessarily think that meant leading something, but it was cool because you sort of fell into this dilapidated organization that needed somebody who had new ideas, who wasn't afraid to come back home and say, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight for something and I'm going to be loud about it. And I'm not going to be afraid to be loud about it, actually, because I'm not afraid of any of the people here. I can get up and leave anytime I want to.
I mean, being 21 years old and leading a group of 70-year-olds is kind of scary, in my opinion.
It could be, Tim. I don't know. You do it now, honestly, being a city councilor.
You're right.
You lead a whole town. That's what's scary to me. That would be scary to me. And that's
it is. But so you become county party chair.
Yeah, if y'all haven't heard, these two guys got to keep me on track. I'm long-winded. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if it's a long story, don't make it short. I'm gonna sit up here and be that way, I guess.
I think you kind of hit on something, and I think a lot of people out there hear it quite a bit too, especially if you're students. After an election, and whichever side you're on, and your side loses, you always get bitched at for not voting, right? The young vote didn't come out. The young people, if the young people just voted, then we could have changed this. We could have done that. And so, I mean, you're a prime example. You came straight from college, 21, and then just got involved. And it was that easy, right? It was just getting involved and showing up one day, and next thing you know, you're starting to make waves. And I'll never forget, I guess it was in 22? No, it's 23. When did you get elected to state party chair?
23.
Early 23.
23. So yeah, in 22, you called me, and I had no idea who you were. And you're like, "I'm trying to get local elected officials to endorse me for state party chair." And I was like, well, we just got smashed in the midterms. And I felt the same as you guys, right? So I'm the youngest elected official in the town of Elon. And I just felt that, we were, I'm not trying to be ageist here, right? Or any ageism happening, but it's always just the young people don't do anything. And then next thing I know, I have a 23-year-old person that sounds like she has cornbread in her teeth and sounds like my cousins wanting to lead the state party. And I just thought that was awesome. And so, of course, I gave the endorsement, and that you getting involved actually led me to get involved. So now I sit on the North Carolina State Democrat Executive Committee because it's very contagious when people around you get involved. And I kind of think that's how Daniel and I started doing it.
Oh, for sure. I would not be here if I didn't have a partner in crime.
Well, I mean, it started with Dad decides to run for House, right? And then you start doing campaign managing. Right. And then next thing you know, there's just like all these young people that I'm starting to surround myself with, and it's like, this is happening, right? It's really, you've got an Elon student there, and Micah, he's a freshman, and he was the third vice chair for our local party, right? So it's something that is very contagious, and I hope everybody will at least get involved in some sort of way. But to follow up, so we can continue this conversation, because I just got really long-winded there. What challenges have you faced as being the youngest? I'm sure it's tough seeing this blonde hair, blue-eyed, not butch body coming in, right? We're not going there. But you show up to stuff, and they're just like, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no experience, right? So how do you handle these challenges?
Honestly, I think the number one thing that I still get is people do not think I have the experience to do the job that I'm currently doing. And it's crazy because I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I got more experience than you do in it. I've been in this job a year and a half now and some change. And so I have to trust myself more. And I think as young people, the thing that we are so quick to do, and I've asked people, I'm like, does it get any better, when you get older in some ways? The self-doubt that you have, or like the imposter syndrome that you can get. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. You just learn how to push through it a little bit more. And
Take it till you make it kind of thing.
yeah, no, genuinely. And I think that in a lot of the spaces that I'm in, a lot of people still do not take my voice seriously. And I'm like, well, you know what? I've been crisscrossing the state a lot more than any of y'all have. Like, I've actually been out talking to people a lot more than some of the consultants or politicos or people that will sit in Raleigh or in Charlotte, honestly, or in DC and will tell us what they know about North Carolina. And I'm like, well, 59% of our state still looks exactly like Alamance County where we're sitting right now. And a lot of people do not understand places that look like this or that are like Elon or people that go here and the students that are here right now. So.
Well, to kind of add on to that, why is that 59% of North Carolina so important? Why? I mean, whether you want to call it rural North Carolina, I keep hearing this word countrypolitan tossed around. Got a lot of feelings about that term.
Me too. Love you, Mac McCorkle, but
but let's why? Maybe let's through the lens of local politics talk about why these communities are so important politically.
Well, so it goes back to North Carolina actually having an economic and geographic sort of population basis in these communities. I think that what people don't or often misinterpret about our state is that, rural North Carolina it doesn't have as much population, right, as the urban centers do. And that's actually wrong, right? Majority of our community still lives in a rural part of the state. We're not in Michigan where you have the Detroit metro area that takes up 59-60% of the population of Michigan, or an Atlanta metro area in Georgia. North Carolina, because of our history in manufacturing and agribusiness, and then that was once sharecropping in that sense, right? And your histories there are what's driven the rural, I would say, like the populations that have still been there and existed in those communities. And then you had Democrats that in North Carolina for the last 40 years, previously to that, but over the last 40 years, and honestly further than that, that have actually contributed to being able to keep people in those rural communities. And so the reason why you haven't seen a big population, we've seen population decline, don't get me wrong, but we haven't seen as much of it as other states have, because people in North Carolina created a community college system that's one of the best in the entire United States right now that helps keep people in their own communities. The university system in North Carolina is one of the best in the entire country. We started the first public university in the entire country. And I think it matters when you think about how we've been able to have a sort of business populism that would enable people to stay and live and work where they're from. And we're seeing that decline right now, and we have over the last 10 years. But it's been important to sort of understand why you still have those demographics. And to win statewide in North Carolina, we need to be operating in all of them. It's a statewide ground game is what you need to have in order to do that.
You said a bunch of things.
Yeah, I did.
Why do I need to care about that?
That was my question.
Oh, that's so good. So that's anecdotally, I feel like people look at me and they say, well, I care about rural North Carolina. And I'm like, because I'm from there. And I think that those communities matter. I think that people that have different ideas in them that are maybe feel and identify differently than the people in them right now should be able to have and grow up there and be able to live there freely. But I also think that political science wise, and what people will tell you about data in the state is that we can't win statewide elections without rural North Carolina and without putting ground game in them. And that is really the priority that I've put on people this year to try to understand why we've lost our state so much in 2020 and in 2022 as a party is because of the fact that we did not have operations in all 100 counties in our state for the Democratic Party.
You talk a little bit about being the youngest person in the room, being the youngest person on probably most of the calls you're on. I would guess you're probably below the average age of that group, and you talk about some of the obstacles that you run into in that environment. But I'm also curious to know there is an advantage to being the youngest person in the room, And in terms of maybe the perspective you bring to the table, could you talk a little bit more about why being a young person in politics maybe gives you a leg up? Like how being the youngest person in the room is actually maybe very much to your advantage?
Because we
A
think
leg
about the
up.
future.
That's a question for all the. I'm asking that for all the freshmen in the room who are like, how do I do this?
No, I mean, I genuinely, because we think about the future. Like, I meet people all the time that are so obsessed with what happened 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, what about the next 20? And when people look at, how do you create a platform and how do you create candidates? How do you get people to like actually buy in and not just what we're voting against, but what we're voting for?
Say
I'm
that
like, you
again.
need people that have a forward thinking viewpoint for their communities that want to be in them for the next 20 years and that have roots in them and that care about them. And a lot of times, what I see from people that have been in political office for a long time is that they can't. And right now, the state party has created a 10-year plan in North Carolina, especially around our court system right now. Because for those of you that are paying attention to what's happening with our election process and mail-in ballots that were supposed to go out last week due to the takeover, or Republican takeover of our Court of Appeals and our Supreme Court, you'll understand the importance of those races. But I think we are seeing such a heightened time for how important it is to be able to think about a long game in this state and in other places in this country. And young people and honestly new people in politics are the ones that I think that are able to do that. I also think people get jaded. There are some times where I will find my young Democrats and my college Democrats will come up to me and they'll have an idea and I'm like, oh God, that is so good. But then my first thought process is that can't happen or we can't do that right now. And then I try to take it back and I'm like, no, what if that was you bringing that idea to somebody that had been here before you? Would you have wanted them to say that to you? Or would you have wanted them to think about it and try to figure out how to make it happen? And like it's what keeps me on my toes, because even I catch myself a year and a half of this job, being the youngest state party chair, being like, you even fall into old habits or the system itself and how things are supposed to be and perpetuating that sometimes. And I think you really have to think about how do you not do that and how do you question everything that you do and make sure you're trying to set different standards.
One of the things I hear you saying is that it's really important to kind of keep that open-mindedness, keep that growth mentality. Try new things. Don't be beholden to doing things just because that's the way they've always been done. I like thinking about. I think it was Aerosmith when they sit down to write songs. They have Here we go, doing Aerosmith. They have a strategy called Dare to be Stupid, where you just toss ideas out for songs, and like that's how they got like Dude Looks Like a Lady. It's from that strategy. But it doesn't always pan out. Like I'm like for every one good idea, you probably get several bad ideas or ideas that you're just like, I can't believe my brain spawned that. And I'm curious, could you give us an example of an initiative or an idea that has gone really well and has been, and in your opinion, very innovative, and one that maybe seemed promising and you pursued a little bit, and then you're like, you know what, we should cut our losses. This was not the way to go. That might be a tough question because
That's
it's always
asking somebody like, what's their favorite movie? Like it's really hard when you get put on the spot.
no, for sure. But
So the program that went really well,
Yeah.
because I think the first thing that came to my mind, we've done a lot of them, but we gave out free Vote Builder access this year to all of our candidates in the state.
what's Vote
And
Builder?
I'm going to explain it.
cool.
I'm going to get there, podcast man. All right, come on now. Give me a moment.
Right.
All right, now, come on. Vote
Podcast
Builder
man.
is... podcast man.
That's my superhero alter ego.
Yeah,
My podcast men up here, everybody. with me. But Vote Builder is basically a database that houses all of the election data in the entire state. And so anytime that someone has knocked a door or made a phone call, they put it into Vote Builder. And typically Vote Builder or a data source is the only sort of way for a state party to sometimes make revenue because, we get access to it from the Democratic National Committee, the national party, that we get access to it and we buy it from them. And then we buy it, or the county parties and also other people are supposed to buy it from us in that sense. And so the last 2 years, the state party has said free, because what we've had is that local candidates, right? $500 expense for Vote Builder is really hard for them to come up with, especially if you're asking them to run in a race that's difficult, a race that may be, a champion race for us this year, or someplace that may not have the just the most help in terms of monetary resources. A lot of our majority minority counties in Eastern North Carolina and a lot of our smaller counties too. And so by doing that, we enabled a lot of our school board candidates, our city council candidates, county commission candidates, and all the folks that are running for state house and senate this year and last year to access that resource. And what it did was it gave us better data. And so when we contact people in a campaign, right, every 4 years we're going through, we've got terrible phone numbers, terrible emails, they're out of date. And because the last time that we went through there and we really verified anything was 4 years ago. And if there's no local aspect of that happening every single year, we're not actually trying to maintain and keep up with people as a party, which is what we should be doing. We should be reaching out to people year after year and all the time. And so that went really, really well. One that has gone not so well, I would say, was the harder one to think about, because I'm like, some of these are
I
still.
have such good ideas.
Well, no, some of them are just still like it's.
It could work.
Yeah, it just takes time, or it takes money, or it takes something that like you've got to prioritize something else above it. So I'm like the things, and to be honest with you, I don't think that we did too many like really transformational, and this is going to sound bad, I feel like, for a young state party chair to say, but I'm like, I don't think we did too many things that were transformational this last 2 years. Like, I think we did things that built infrastructure where we needed to, which like is not, as y'all have seen over the last 4 years, it's not shiny work. It's like hard work, it's gritty work, it's going out places, it's, meeting with people on the ground, it's talking to a stakeholder that has maybe been angry at the state party for 4 years and they're out there in Bladen County, and you've got to go down to a K&W and meet them for 4 hours of your life.
Okay,
Like,
Pauline.
I mean, truly, but some of that is like, that is what this has looked like. And I think a lot of what I would actually like to see is programs to some degree fail, and for us to be able to try more things. We are trying a judicial program right now. Ask me that question again after November, and let's see how this judicial program has worked too in that sense. Maybe that's the fail piece. I don't think so.
So
in general. Shout out Becca Zirkin. I love you. My God.
we've probably got about 15 more minutes.
Is this audience Q&A?
Well, I want to do an audience Q&A,
Okay.
and maybe this can segue into it, because I want your take, and then I would love to hear your take on this question too. So I feel like a lot of times people that are involved in politics, they goes back to just bitching at the younger generation for not voting. And it's like, how do you address this apathy and skepticism that it feels like it's put upon young people, right? Like it's projected on them that they just don't care. And I don't believe that's true. So how do you address that with people? Why should people in Elon, so like Appalachian probably isn't as out of state as a lot of people here in Elon. So why should people here in Elon register to vote here in North Carolina or Alamance? But yeah, how do you address apathy with young people?
Your votes matter, A. I talk a lot about local races because your down ballots are very important. And I talk a lot about them because I think that, to the point that my podcast men were making earlier up here, that the races on your ballot that oftentimes matter the most are the ones that you probably could not name the person that's in charge of them right now, or the 5 people that sit on your county commission or on your city council. And I think that young people have a right to be apathetic right now because they've not had a political system that has been talking to them. And when I see students have candidates show up on campus, when we've done the visits that we've done across the UNC system and across some of our HBCUs right now that we're seeing, when these folks show up, like, students are engaged. They're asking questions. They care a lot about policy. You all care a lot about policy, about how to solve problems. And you want to have a politician or a public servant, which is what I feel like they should be rather than politicians, right? In that sense, a public servant who actually tries to go chase you down and answer and wants to be that way. And something that I have been thinking a lot about, people look at me all the time and they're like, when are you going to run for office? And I'm like, being a public official should be something that people hold with such great weight because you are responsible for the people of your district. You're responsible for folks' lives, whether or not they get access to the type of services that they need. And if we had representatives across this state and across this city that felt that way about actually holding the positions and the titles that they do right now, nobody in North Carolina would be going without in this state. And I think that's important for young people to realize because you all care. You give a shit. And so I think you all should be running for office. I think you all should be chasing down those answers. And I hope if you learn anything from me sitting up here, you'll learn it's a pretty damn easy road to get there as long as you do get involved.
Just show up.
Yeah, just show up and be willing to maybe do that work and get your hands dirty and be somebody that is actually wanting to get the resources to people, because I feel like that's our biggest job. Somebody looked at me and they said, what do we do after we win in November? And I'm like, that's when the real work begins. Like the election is the easy part, everybody. The hard part comes afterwards. When we help that last 100,000 people in this state understand that Democrats gave them Medicaid expansion this last year, help them get health care for the first time in their lives. When we help, to Governor Cooper's point, he's got a great story that he uses about giving Penny her Medicaid card for the first time, and that she was crying when he handed her that card because she had never had that type of care. That's what we have to do in 2025 and 2026. And to be honest with y'all, we got to do that regardless of whether or not we win in November, because we are the party that gives a shit about people. And all of you in this room, regardless of what political affiliation you have, can have that type of impact. And I hope that's what's going to help with voter apathy, because when more young people get involved, more young people will vote. And older voters did not become consistent voters as an older person. They started when they were young, and people helped them register. They got there and they became the voting bloc that no one could defeat. And young people, you're looking at the next voting bloc around you right now that no one is going to be able to defeat one day when we get our shit together, to be real with y'all.
That's a perfect segue
Yes.
into a brief interval of Q&A. Anderson has a hard stop at 7 p.m.
I do, I'm sorry.
For good reasons. You're gonna be on the TV, right? On the screen somewhere. Probably a channel I don't get, but I'll watch it on YouTube later. So this is such an intimate event. This is not a giant auditorium. We have an opportunity to do kind of Q&A casually without running around with a microphone. Y'all, if you're comfortable, can just kind of raise your hand. I'll call on you. I'll go to Ethan here first, and then if you would like, my mama made us some cookies right here. They're really good. If you ask a question, you are officially entitled to a cookie, and if you don't ask a question, you are officially entitled to a cookie. So let's start with Ethan here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm a freshman here at Elon. I'm originally from Minnesota, but I'm registered to vote here in Alamance County.
How easy was that?
Took me like 2 minutes.
Took you 2 minutes to register you relocated here from Minnesota for college, and it took you 2 minutes to change your voter registration.
And I've heard a lot about all the great vibes in this campaign, the energy. How does that translate vibes into votes?
We knocked 25,000 doors this last weekend as a campaign, and so turns it into energy. Vibes turn into energy, which then turns into votes, because we need every single one of you, if you were not already signed up, to get out and knock doors with the Alamance County Dems or with any political party that you so choose to be a part of on this campus. At least for us, you can go talk to our beautiful county party chair, Ron Osborne, in the back right there, everybody. Or you can Google Alamance Dems if you're listening to this. And if you are listening to this and you are not in Alamance County, you can go to ncdp.org to get involved, because we need every single foot soldier out there helping us.
Well, and to talk about just foot soldier and knocking doors, when I first started getting involved, I was really intimidated on knocking on doors, because I felt like I was going to knock on a door and somebody was just going to cuss me the hell out. Like, that's what I knew was coming. But it goes back to the vote builder thing you're talking about. You're not going to be sent out to a door of somebody that's probably doesn't lean your way. Of course, you might find somebody that doesn't agree with you, and you might get the 5% chance of getting blessed out. But it's honestly really fun. Like, you knock on a door, and they're thankful that you're there. Like, it's maybe that person that hadn't voted in a presidential election in the last 8 years. And you knock on that person's door, and they're really thankful that you're there. And you put that information back into Vote Builder, and it just allows that vibe that you talked about to turn into votes.
That's a really good question. Thank you, Ethan. Yes.
I have one that to kind of piggyback on that. Anderson, I'd like to put you on the spot to give your best field pitch.
I cannot wait.
And tell us the most fun door you've knocked on, or the craziest door you've knocked on. Because canvassing is scary your first time, but it is so fun, and you will meet the craziest or coolest people. So what's your best story?
So for folks listening, in case you didn't hear it at home later on the podcast, because we're going to release this episode on the podcast, the question is, Anderson, what is your craziest canvassing story? Coolest, craziest?
I don't know that it's the craziest. I think I understand after a post-pandemic mindset that a lot of y'all want to go home and get in your bed and not talk to anybody. I feel you. Like
That was me before the pandemic.
I mean, genuinely. But I think that there is a real, even after that, though, there is this real sense of isolationism that we have as a whole as humans right now. And I think in order to break us of that, we need to get back to a place where we actually want to talk to people face to face. And a lot of that can be scary. To me, what I always tell people is what's scarier to me is losing my rights in an election cycle or next year, to be honest with y'all. And so I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to that wall over there if I needed to about getting out to vote this election cycle to not have that happen. But I also think that, to Quinn's point, you may knock doors and you may find somebody that isn't as interested or that, is a Trump voter or somebody that may disagree with you completely. Still being willing to have that conversation is the first step to me. Everybody is somebody worth talking to in election cycle. And even if they may not be voting in line with your person, you proving to that person that you're willing to have that conversation with them is actually negating something that they're hearing about our side of the line all the time, is that we're not willing to do that. And I'm actually like, no, we're willing to meet people in the middle. Everybody should be willing to do that right now. And so I think the best thing that you could be doing is talking to voters, and the most important thing, the way that you could be doing it, is knocking doors. And that field margin that I've been talking about, North Carolina in 2020 was lost by 74,000 votes statewide. 74,000 votes seems like a lot until you think about that. We got 100 counties in North Carolina and over 2,600 precincts in all of those counties in the state. It is 42 votes per every precinct in every single county that we lost statewide by. And when you break that down for folks and you say, I ain't asking you to do much. I'm asking you to go out and find 42 people in this precinct that didn't vote last cycle. I'm asking you to find 5 of your friends, 5 of your neighbors to get out here and do it with us. You should want to do that, I think. But I talk to people a lot about the issues, and I don't know if that was the best field pitch I could have given, and I don't know if that was the craziest story because I didn't really tell one, but I think I'm trying to help people understand, like, it is just, well, I guess I should say, my dad, we knocked on a door this year. My dad's running for county commissioner in Person County. He was a Trump voter in 2016, if y'all can believe that, and he is now a Joe Biden 2020 voter and a Joe Biden 2024 voter and running as a Democrat for Person County commissioner because we needed somebody to fill a seat on a ballot. And he said, I'm not going to let the Republicans run unopposed this year. And I said, thank you, Mark Clayton. But he was so scared to get out and knock doors. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, I'm going to go with you because I think, A, we don't send anybody out without a partner right now unless you feel really comfortable about knocking doors. So you're going with somebody, which should make you feel good about your life because then you can laugh if you do hit a door like that Quinn was talking about earlier. But the second thing is that, when we went out, there was this guy and the address, the person that was at the home that Vote Builder had told us would be there wasn't actually the person that was at the address. And he looked at me and he said, we probably shouldn't knock this door then, right? And I said, no, we're going to knock it anyway. And we walk up to it and we knock it, and he's got this big American flag on the back of his car, and he's got like a "Do Not Tread on Me" sticker or whatnot on it. And Dad looks at me and he goes, Anderson. And he comes to the door and it's a white man, all right? And my dad is looking at me still nervous. Like you can just tell he's sort of shifting beside me because he's like, this guy is going to tell us he's voting for Donald Trump. And I looked at him and I said, sir, my name's Anderson Clayton. I'm a volunteer here today with the Person County Democrats. I said, can I ask you about who you're getting out to vote for this year? And he said, who are you here with? And I said, at that point in time, Joe Biden. And he said, my God, I've been waiting for y'all to get here. He said, thank you. He said, this county's crazy, ain't it? And my dad, he looked back and he started laughing so hard. And he goes, well, if you don't mind me asking, why are you so grand about it? He said, we've knocked a lot of doors today and I've not seen somebody be so excited like you. But it was good for my dad to feel that way because he thought he was the only person out there that may find a door like that in it. And I said, no, there's little treasures everywhere. So you never know with people.
Little
Probably got
treasures
time
everywhere. That's wholesome.
For one more question.
Sorry, audience.
Well, maybe two, but this could be,
Okay.
depending on how fast we get through them. Let's go. Yeah, here. Mm-hmm.
Well, my name's Lily. I'm from Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Come on, Henderson.
Hello.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's no lack of caring in our generation or any other, but there seems to be, people get jaded, people become cynics. So how do you suggest that people stay hopeful throughout the decades that politics will matter in our lives?
I think you get to know people that are running, and honestly, you also get involved at the local level. Like, I genuinely, when I became a Person County Democratic Party chair, we got involved with city council races for the first time in Roxborough, and someone that I care so deeply about, her name is Shayna Blackwell Outlaw, is a city councilor now in Roxborough, but she was somebody that made, less than minimum wage or less than $15 minimum wage working at McDonald's. She's a mom of 4, like, she's a working class person, and somebody that I was sitting there and I was like, God, the Democratic Party, we always talk about the type of people that we represent. Like, why wouldn't we try to put those type of people in positions of power, right? And why is that not what our party's doing? And I feel like young people right now are so engaged that, like, find somebody that cares about the issues that you're championing too, and make sure that you're helping them propel forward, because I think, like, the advocacy is what matters there, but also just finding your own way to carry through, because I think all of these folks running this year are so inspiring. Like Martin Moore, who's running for Court of Appeals, would be one of the youngest people elected statewide. And he always sits there and he just goes, no child is worth throwing away. And right now our judicial system is throwing away children at this point. And having somebody that's been a child advocacy lawyer in the court system right now that also represents us is something where I'm like, my God, that could be such an impassioned thing to have for the next 8 years. Because Court of Appeals seats are 8 years in North Carolina. Supreme Court races are 8 years. So you're talking about the next decades, and I'm like, these folks are it actually on your ballot this year. They're going to be involved with politics for the next eons, and also so are your state legislators. So are these two folks up here beside me right now, and making sure that you're finding the ways to keep yourself hopeful by the people that are also going to motivate you in this. Because I think the issues matter, but I also think it's about who you're doing it with.
Yeah, I think that's where it is for me, is the people who you surround yourself with. So no matter where you stand politically, once you flip that switch of being aware of politics, it's really hard to turn off. Like, sometimes I really wish I just could turn it off, and I know that's a lot of privilege involved in being able to turn it off, but I can't. So it's really made me hopeful, more over than just the people that I can potentially elect. It's the people that I'm around. It's around being people like Daniel, and then getting a phone call from Anderson Clayton, and, seeing these people that I'm surrounding myself with helps keep me hopeful, because we're all become politically aware, and we're all doing it together. So I know I'm not going to go knock that door by myself.
I want to see, do you think we could get this young scholar right here before we end up? Yeah, round up. Mm-hmm.
So my name is Ryan. I'm from Charlotte. And my question for you is, if we wanted to bring candidates to Elon, how would we go about doing that in order to have that discussion and those dialogues between the people who are actively wanting to be engaged in politics and then the people who are actually running?
Maybe we'd love to connect with me after this. I'd love to make sure that they get here. They want to come. Like, they are literally, I had Martin Moore out with me the other day. We're going to have State Auditor Jessica Holmes out with us soon on our HBCUs like FSU and also A&T, and then a couple other of our schools too that we're going to be able to hit with some statewide candidates. But we'd love to come back.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. But we're going to wrap up here in a second. We do have T-shirts over here if you want to help support the Hometown Holler. Our mission is, we call it North Carolina Politics in a Shot Glass. You can go to our social media and watch a reel, and you'll know exactly what I mean by that 30 seconds in. You can also listen to our podcast every Monday. We have a new episode out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We're trying to make North Carolina a better state, one conversation at a time. And we've been really lucky to have been successful in that mission, beyond, I think, anything Quinn and I could have imagined. And so we have some T-shirts available for sale, and we're also going to give one to Anderson. Every special guest gets a special gift. These T-shirts are from TS Designs, which is it's Alamance County's premier apparel company. I don't know if y'all know TS Designs, but they're here in Alamance County. Their cotton is 100% a South Carolina, North Carolina supply chain. It's not a 30,000-mile supply chain. It's like 700 miles. They say it's 100% organic, fair trade cotton from dirt to shirt is what they say. So, Anderson, wear it with pride. And folks, thank you again for joining us. And we'll be around to hang out in fellowship. We got plenty more cookies. Anything else you want to say, Quinn?
Yeah, one more thing. Before Anderson leaves to her big-time interview,
we getting a selfie?
Bigger than, yeah, we're going to get a selfie, and we would like you guys to be in it. So we're going to stand right here. All right. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. I love you, humans.
All right. Thanks, Anderson.
And that is how you be the youngest state party chair. In
That's
and
it.
out.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, y'all, for coming. We'll be around to chat. Y'all have a great night.
Thanks.